what separated your deep ball from everybody else?
My deep ball, it has a little secret sauce to it, man.
Never get too high, never get too low, but just keep moving.
The whole story is Carlos never beat me in any kind of sports in high school.
Welcome to the Orange is the New Black podcast. I am your host, Ace Boogie, joined by my co-host, Zim. Zim, say what's up.
What's up, world? How you guys doing? We are back. Orange is the New Black podcast. What's going on, Who Dey Nation?
Yeah, definitely. We've got to talk about what's going on. So the Miami game happens. And what were your thoughts just overall from that game and just the Bengals going forward?
One thing that I want to caution everybody is, for me, the biggest thing that came out of the game to me was Jonah Williams, because I just think about the future. You know, like I think in a lot of ways, I don't know if it's where I'm raised at. I don't know, if your background has anything to do with this too, but all that extracurricular stuff, I feel like a lot of people are focusing on that. And to me, that wasn't really a big deal. Was that a big deal to you? Like the little scuffle after, and then 3 people get ejected for that thing. Like, does that signal something? I feel like that's a lack of, okay, like, I feel like if they could have had Belichick or something like that, a scuffle like that could happen. But I think fans out of frustration are just looking for a way to point at somebody and say they've lost control and Zach Taylor didn't have a locker room. Although that may be the case, I could see a situation getting ugly like that with the most disciplined team in the NFL. If somebody is hitting one of my guys, I'm going to respond, and that's just what it is. There's a large group of demographics of people that are like responding to that, or they're using that as the conversation piece after the game is like, they've just lost it, and look at these guys. And like, I'm more upset at the 5 guys on the offensive line that were sitting on the bench while everybody was brawling, because those are the guys that aren't representing brotherhood. Now, I say brotherhood. People online or Twitter, I'm looking at it, they're like, calling it ghetto or whatever. I don't know what they're calling it, but to me, some guys got into it, and I know I got off a little subject because that was just grinding me up like for the last 10 minutes. Like, I just see a lot of that, like where people on Twitter saying, like, oh, they're out of control and stuff. Like, no, I feel like they got into a little scuffle after the play, taking up for one of their guys, and it is what it is. Like, the focus is on the football game for me, and they look really.
I think to me it really was more so about the frustrations boiling over on this season. I think that had a lot to really do with it. I think like one thing that I'm not saying that this parallels with it, but like you look at the AJ Green and Jalen Ramsey fight, right? It wasn't really more so about what Jalen Ramsey said to AJ, and I think some of it was, but I think it was just the fact that it was such a frustrating part that something like that can set you off, right? Like, if you're 2 and you've only won 2 games this season, and somebody on the other team that normally talks trash is like, you guys are trash, it's going to kind of set you off. I do have to agree with people that feel like the coaching staff is at fault for not being able to handle certain aspects, but it just kind of just showed that Zach Taylor isn't in control of this team. And I think it was telling, like you said, the guys that weren't on the field, everyone from the Miami Dolphins, the coach included, came onto the field during that thing. Now,
right.
The one thing, though, that I do think for me, like if I was on the other side of that play, and I think if we all were on the other team and the Steelers did that to us, I think we would feel like that was dirty, the second shot. Like, for it to happen twice like that, like if that were to happen to our own player and it was the Steelers that did that, I think we would all be like, nah, like I would be ready to fight and stuff like that too.
I'm sorry because you know what this remind me of? Remember last year when the Myles Garrett situation happened? He hit Rudolph or whatever, right? Remember how pissed I was after the game that everybody was talking about that? I even went on my live and I was like, why y'all talking about that crap? That don't have nothing to do with the ass whooping the Steelers just got. And remember how upset I was, whatever? I just feel like sometimes stuff like this really takes the focus off of what's the problem. And the problem is we're not winning football games. And
right, but I think that this is a
it does
product of
coincide.
that. I think it's a product of that, right? I think like the frustrations come out, and it might just be something. And I said when you were gone, like if someone on the Dolphins was just like you're trash, and it's like you've only won 2 games, utilized correctly or something like that, that may be something to send you over the edge. I think that was it, but I think like you said, it was kind of telling that it was somewhat kind of divided as well because you still had some players on the bench. But it was just weird, man. Like I would like to actually hear what Brian Flores had to say because I saw him coming on the field. I saw Von Bell kind of like push him back and say, "Hey, let us handle it." But I think it's really it takes away from the narrative that and I don't think that takes away from it because I hear a lot of people saying
it does because that's all people are talking about though. Like I feel like that's all
people are talking about. Fire Zach. A lot of people who were but it's super optimistic and all of that for a few weeks. I'm not pessimistic. I'm a realist. I just tell it like how it is. So like when we see what's going on now with like Zach not really having control of this team, not really fighting, to me it just seemed like a team that kind of gave up on them. I think we were wondering when that moment was going to come. I think this week we've finally seen it, and it's just a shame that they got frustrated to the point that they got pushed like that. But it just is what it is at this point. I mean, unfortunately, that was the only fight that this team showed for real was when they actually got into it. Go ahead, you're on mute.
I just think that if we're winning a football game and that happens, like in contrast, like you said with the Dolphins, right? And we could lead the subject or whatever. Like if you're winning, and people in here got to understand, if we're winning the football game, you're not talking about that after the game. And if you are talking about it, it's just because you're upset that somebody did a dirty play or somebody whatever. But that's not the focal point. And for me, I'm a football purist. I don't all that extracurricular stuff or whatever. Like I see it, like even the Tyler Boyd thing when it happened. I said, yeah, like dude pushed Tyler Boyd a little late. So what? I'm with all that extracurricular stuff. Like that's cool. Like as long as nobody get hurt, like that's just competitive nature in me or whatever. Like I'm stronger than you. I'm mentally stronger than you. You can't push me after the play and think I'm gonna cry about it or anything like that. I'm gonna fight back. I'm gonna retaliate, and that's just my mindset. So when the players did that in a setting like that. If the team was undefeated or they were the Saints and they were 9-2 or something like that, I just don't think nobody would be talking about it. But it does coincide with the fact that maybe Zach Taylor's lost the locker room or whatever. But Brian Flores, you don't come on here or the people that are here saying this is unacceptable. Like y'all ain't never been in no fight before. But the people that are saying it's unacceptable, why aren't y'all saying it's unacceptable that the Dolphins came on the field, the whole entire bench emptied out? You know,
but the thing is,
like, it's the same thing. One team
it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. The reason that it's not is because
say it was dirty. Say it was a dirty play. Say it was a dirty play. I don't even care about that. Like that's so what? Like he's dirty. Eject him from the game. Let's focus on the game. The Bengals could have won the game, but they lost the game. Let's talk about the plays and all the different stuff.
But to me, it was. To me, it's different from the Dolphins because it's like when Gio got hit by Shazier, right? All of our players came off to like make sure like he was straight, and they came to his defense. That's the position Miami was in. Like it's different. Like the Tyler Boyd one, I feel like the dude Xavier Howard, he was at fault because he kind of came at Tyler Boyd. He swung at him, right? He took the first shot, in my opinion, to start the whole thing. In this situation. Our dude was the one that like leveled their guy, and the dude was only like 5'7", and it was the second time. Like it wasn't like it was the first time that they all came out. It was the second time that it happened, and so like with them coming onto the field, I could see that just because they're coming to the aid of their player per se.
And the Bengals on the field are coming in defense. If they see a whole Miami Dolphins thing empty out on their field, then the Bengals players are coming in defense. Mike Thomas as well. I just don't. I think I'm losing y'all, or maybe I'm losing you with this. I just don't even see how it has any. To me, it doesn't have anything to do with the game because if we're winning the game, who cares? Like you know what I'm saying. We could talk about who's dirty, who's not, whatever. Like, but if we're winning the game, you would say, oh, they're coming to the aid of the players. But since we're losing the game, oh, it's unacceptable. Da 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 da. I want to talk about like the game itself.
I think where before we not to spend too much time on it, I think where people are coming off where they're blaming the coaches is why would you be telling Mike Thomas to keep doing that. Like if Mike Tomlin was to let him keep doing something like that, like who would? I think that's what it is.
They can't do that. And if you really want to talk about it, the first time he was pushed and his momentum carried it to it. But even still, let's say I'm playing devil's advocate. Let's say he did that, whatever. Zach Taylor didn't come up to him and say, "Go do that again."
Right. But I think people would assume like if you had something like that and it resulted again the same time, I think is what people were saying. But I mean, I honestly you could look at that both ways. You could look at it from events like that. You could look at it from penalties. You know, both teams had a lot of penalties and stuff in this game that shows lack of discipline. But I mean, to blow that up the most, I think like what Zim is saying is to put that over, you know, the offense only scoring 7 points or bad coaching decisions that have happened throughout the season. Right. I definitely wouldn't put it up there with any of that.
Right. They lost because, I mean, like, think about this. Say that Tyler Boyd play doesn't go. He doesn't take it 72 yards to the house. You know, like they might get blanked out today.
Yeah,
like,
get blanked out.
To me, I want to talk about the lack of execution, the lack of how Zach Taylor's offense doesn't resonate with players to make average players or above average players better, right? That's the focal point. I don't need them getting into a scuffle to make myself feel higher and mighty and say, that's unacceptable. Like, I saw that comment just a couple times, like, that has nothing to do with his coaching not putting.
Yeah, let's talk about the coaching. For him
not putting points on the board. And him not putting points on the board. I thought the defense did enough. I thought William Jackson made enough plays today when he was in one-on-one situations with Devontae Parker, who is a very, very formidable, like, top 10 wide receiver in this league on the low. For him to play the way that he played, Jesse Bates played really well. Sam Hubbard had the best game of his season today. There were some plays that were made out there, whatever. But when you look at the whole entire thing, there's only a couple players that can go to the next level with us if this team is going to get any better. And so for me, I was just looking at the future. The biggest thing out of that game, it has nothing to do with a scuffle, Tyler Boyd getting ejected, anything. The biggest thing out of that game is Jonah Williams' knee. If his knee is not right, that changes the entire draft, whatever you thought that we were about to do, all the different things that we were trying to say and what we were going to build on. I think when Adeniji came in, he was terrible. I thought Agba or whatever his name was abusing Bobby Hart on the other side. There are some people that I could single out and say that guy could come, and it's some guys that I looked at and I said that guy can't come, and I wrote down every single one of them. And the biggest problem is we were having a conversation with Malik earlier today or whatever. The biggest problem I have that I just don't have an answer for is this. I don't see any coach that I like signing up for this. Like signing up for that front office. I don't see any coach that I like willing to let ownership dictate so much. It would have to be like a Zach Taylor like talent, or somebody that that's achieved less. Because anybody that's achieved more, like we were talking about Stefanski or something like that, he's been around. He earned his stripes. Like, he earned the right to call his shots and do his different things like that. Zach Taylor has no pull in that whole thing. And the reason why he has no pull is because that's the way the front office would like it to be. And I just don't think any of the coaches that we throw around, the names that we throw around, that's my biggest problem as I was watching the game, I'm just like, what coach is going to sign up for this? There's a lot of players that they could keep. There's so much building that needs to be done. Like, even in a game that was close, why do we feel like without Joe Burrow, I felt like we were down 14 and we were up. Like, that's how weird that team is. I felt like we were down and we were up by like what? It was like 7-3 or 7-6 or something like that. And I almost feel like we were playing from behind because they lack so many things that it takes to win football games. And that was my biggest takeaway, I think, from this game. It's like, you can get mad at different things that you didn't like. You can get mad at a stupid scuffle that nobody's going to remember next week. But ultimately, people look at the score and they look at records. And our record is terrible. the team plays very, very terrible together with a lot of talented players, and that's a big problem.
I mean, it's a huge problem. I think we saw that today with the Giants and the Seahawks. There's no excuses. The Giants came in with Colt McCoy and beat the Seahawks today. When I talk about getting Duke Tobin out of here, that's why I said it. Like, it's not just a Zach Taylor issue. Obviously, Zach is part of the issue, but Duke Tobin has been a person that has kind of signed off on Zach being the coach, kind of sold ownership on that. I think as a result of that means that you have to make a change there as well. But I mean, Zach, it's been pretty obvious that Zach needs to go. Like, to be honest with you, and I think one thing we were talking about earlier is the fact that Lou Anarumo has actually been solid like the past 3 games. Like, the offense has completely died without Joe Burrow. And I've always felt like Joe Burrow was making this offense look a lot better than it is. You talk about the offensive line. I've talked about Jim Turner for most of the season. They started to improve, and I think most of that may have actually been due to Joe Burrow. And now this stuff is crumbling, and these were moves that the front office signed off on in terms of the personnel. This is something that the coaches wanted, and I think we're just seeing the disaster that it is. This offensive line problem, I keep saying it, it's not a new problem. It's been since 2016. This isn't something that's just like, oh, what are we going to do about it? And the Bengals have had the same kind of situation where they kind of wait for things to play out, and they wait until it's too late. You look at the Andy Dalton situation. They waited too long. A.J. McCarron, they waited too long. Linebacker situation, after they moved on from Vontaze, they waited too long to get new linebackers in there. They finally have done that, but then sometimes it's too little too late. They tried to go out here and get a coaching staff that they thought was going to be more productive than Marvin Lewis and get this team over the hump, and they simply have not done that. They haven't come even close to it. I think I could even go as far as saying, I'm not a Marvin guy. Marvin Lewis would have won more games than Zach Taylor these last 2 years. I think everyone, even if you dislike Marvin Lewis or the message guy, you could agree with that as well. And I think that the Bengals just need to make a decision to move on from it. Now, I do think I hear what you're saying in terms of, no one wants to sign up for the Bengals, but I think Joe Burrow helps them. I think if they didn't have Joe Burrow, nobody would want this job. The fact that they have Joe Burrow, that helps them. But like you're saying, are they going to be able to relinquish that power to a head coach like a Jim Harbaugh or something like that? That's something that they have to look themselves in the mirror and say, in 2026, this contract is up. We're not putting people in seats. We got what's going on right now. You can't sell this fan base, Zach Taylor staying here. You can't sell them something like, if you were to hire Jim Harbaugh, I'm not saying that they will, but if you did, those butts are in seats. People are excited. Everything that happened in the past 2 years is automatically a wash. If you hire Eric Bieniemy, it's probably the same thing. Whoever you bring in, it has to be somebody that's well respected, that people feel like has a resume, has a background, has a plan that will work, a plan that has been proven to work in the NFL. I think that's how you get people to buy back into it. I don't see it working with Zach Taylor. That's just my personal thing. I don't see that working. Even if he's to get rid of Jim Turner and all of that, it's still the same bad culture. It's still the same bad taste in Bengals fans' mouth. This guy is 0-15 on the road. Like, that's not hating. That's just facts. I can't say anything. Like, I was defending this dude last year. We were defending this dude last year. I can't defend this. And honestly, we have to think about what's best for the team moving forward. That's what they have to think about moving forward. And it can't be getting caught up on, we have to pay Zach Taylor this money. Yes, it's unfortunate we have to do that if you do move on from him, but that's better than losing 2 more seasons where you're not going to have fans in the seats no matter what. You can have your super fans there, but there's a whole bunch of other seats that aren't there, that they're not going to be able to get fans in if you don't make the moves necessary moving forward. And all you're doing right now is damaging that. Like you said, Jonah Williams now has a knee injury. Joe Burrow now has a knee injury. These things, not to say that we can avoid injuries, but you could have done something to greatly reduce this happening if you were to put a better line in place and make better moves. You didn't do that. Now we're seeing the worst of what could actually happen.
Yeah, I mean, I just find myself like when I was watching the game today, I was very, very disinterested in the product. At no point did I feel like this is a fun team or anything to watch. And then
the Tyler Boyd play was fun to watch. I say that. That play was.
As luck will have it, I'm playing a guy in fantasy football, and guess who he has? Tyler Boyd. So I was kind of like pissed, but like I said, I want to win because, like someone just showed me a clip of the Sean Williams. I don't know if y'all seen that clip where he steps on the ankle. Like I just feel like there's a lot of guys on this team that are just ready to leave. There's a lot of guys on this team that are very, very tired of losing. And I think ultimately Zach makes them feel like losers. Yep. And no man can make you feel like that. No one person can make somebody feel like that. But if the leader of, the message that's being conveyed in the locker room hasn't won anything and he's still saying the same exact things and then they're still saying the same exact results, anybody that's in here that thinks that Zach Taylor could possibly be the answer, like, you're completely wrong. And you're trying to I think me and you were trying to be fair, give him some time and everything like that. But he's clearly in over his head. There's no progression at all. Because without Joe Burrow, like, I know that's a tough task, though. I like to put myself in other people's perspective. But think about this. Joe Burrow throughout the whole year is taking every single rep. So, like, that's hard to get, like, a backup quarterback, like, in line, get him on, like, privy to the game plan and everything like that. But good coaches do.
Right.
And the fact that neither one of those guys stand a chance and they look like they're going to get slaughtered, they don't look like they belong in the NFL. He makes a lot of players look like they don't even belong in the NFL. A lot of people are getting on Mike Thomas, for that position. That's a Zach guy, and that's a gunner that maybe is not even in the position that he should be in. And we're talking about this weekly. That was one of the things I kept on saying is, like, you got so many guys playing out of position or so many guys that are not happy with their role on the team that now, I mean, nobody really cares about, like, the repercussions and stuff. I just think everybody on the team just wants the season to be over. If they were a 0-11 team like the Jets or whatever, it probably will be uglier than what it is right now. I think because they were competitive in some of those games, they still do believe that they know that they have the talent to win games. But I know at this point, it's very clear that every person on that staff has failed making these guys better. And those guys know it. And they're watching other teams like the Dolphins, who were in a worse position than us last year, come back, go draft a bunch of people, a lot of young talent. They got our backup safety. You know what I'm saying? Like, all these different things. They know, like, players talk. They know the personnel. You know who's good. You know who's not. We're looking at the Dolphins. We're looking at, like, Myles Gaskin and all these people, like, excelling at what they're doing because their coaching is putting them in a position to do it to the standpoint that these guys are about to go to the playoffs. The Miami Dolphins. You know what I'm saying? And I'm looking at Tua in the first half of that game. Tua is going to be a good pro, but he's nothing like Joe Burrow. Like, that is, like, he's not even close. Like, he couldn't sniff Joe Burrow's jockstrap, and that was very clear in the first half. The second half, he played really well, but even still, it's just a difference in the command of a team and everything like that. And I'm not being a homer by saying that Joe Burrow just does so much for the team. And I just felt like without Joe Burrow on that team, these guys have no leader and they feel like they're losers. And the only way to correct that is to instill new hope. Go get new players. Like big time free agent guys that guys believe in. Guys know around the league. Like, if you were to go to get like a Trent Williams or something, like, everybody in there, Trent Williams walks into the locker room day one and says, yeah, I'm Trent fucking Williams. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm that guy. And that's one step to getting the players' belief back in there. The other step before you even get to that is getting them position coaches that they believe in and getting them new coaching. And anybody that thinks that there's another way around that. There isn't like that. I've exhausted my mind today just thinking like, how could we make this thing like it doesn't work?
I was saying that earlier on in the season, and it was like when people were saying that it was the coaching, people were like, "Oh, you guys are just being negative." No, it's coaching. Like, I mean, a lot of it is, and I think we talked off the line. People are wondering why aren't these guys buying in? Look at the coaching staff. Look at their experience. You can use Wikipedia. Look at their experience. Then think about what coaches were on this staff during the Marvin Lewis era. First of all, Marvin Lewis took the Ravens to a Super Bowl. Coach Ray Lewis, Coach Ed Reed, Hartwell, like he's got skins in it. Like people know who he is. If you were an NFL player, you know somebody that worked with someone that was a Hall of Famer, future Hall of Famers, wouldn't you respect them? They also worked with Hugh Jackson. We interviewed Hugh Jackson. Go do a Wikipedia search on Hugh Jackson's resume. Look at how many jobs he's had, where he's been at, who he's coached, all of that. Vance Joseph, the defensive coordinator right now for the Cardinals. They loved him when he was here. Superstar coach. He was a head coach at one point. Jay Gruden, like Mike Zimmer, like they have been around some of the best coaches. Even though it's the Bengals, they have had some of the best coaching and the best staffs and have learned this stuff from the best people. So if you really think that somebody's going to show up and say, no, how you were doing it was wrong when it's from guys who have been in the NFL with probably a combined 40 or 50 years of coaching experience and say it should be done this way, if you really think guys are going to come in and respect that, that's not going to work. And I think that's what happened is the Bengals players that were there when Marvin was there, they were used to all of that good coaching. They got the top of the line coaching. They got coaching from guys that went from being positional coaches and coordinators to head coaches. So I think to me, it's not hard for the players to know whether or not people know what they're talking about. And you take it a step back even further. Some of these guys went and played for guys like Nick Saban and all of these great colleges and coordinators there too. So they know if someone doesn't know what they're talking about. I'm not saying that they don't know what they're talking about, but you kind of get the vibe that the coaching isn't really working. And it's not for all of them. I think Elise came out and said that some of them do like some of the positional coaches and stuff like that, or they're tighter with their positional coach or look for confidence in their positional coach versus maybe a coordinator or the head coach. But it comes down to coaching, bro. It comes down to coaching. It comes down to putting guys in the right position. If you, like I said, with the Darrelle Revis thing, Tampa paid him, put him in the wrong position. This guy was the best corner in the league. It was a big mistake. He looked like just an average guy because of a scheme. So it all comes down to coaching, and you know they have to start there. At the time when they hired Zach, I feel like they didn't have leverage. They didn't have Joe Burrow, so they had no leverage where they could be like, all right, we've got this great future at the quarterback position with Joe Burrow. At that point, they had Andy Dalton. They had guys that were on the other side of their careers. It was a position that wasn't really appealing for someone to take over. Now you've got Joe Burrow, but now there's a bunch of issues because Joe Burrow is hurt. But hopefully you can still get someone in there because of that. But the coaching staff has to change out. Obviously, that changes if you move on from Zach Taylor. I think you get that. But they just got to make the right move. That's what it really comes down to. And we'll have to see if they do that and moving forward, whether or not it works. A lot of people are talking about Urban Meyer. I honestly don't care who it is. If it's Jay Gruden, if it's Urban Meyer, whoever it is, it doesn't matter. But we got a super chat here from the Diasporan for $10. I appreciate that. The main barometer should be that Marvin Lewis did not leave this team that bad off when he left. No road wins, 4 total in 2 years, regression of our best players / mismanagement of the rest. ZT has to go. I mean, I've been felt like that. I mean, this isn't something new to me. But until they do it, all we can do is keep talking about it. So for me, I just think that they got to move in that direction. That's all I really have to say on it. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about?
I for the first time in a long time, I'm very, very worried about the franchise though. That's like to me, I know you don't mean you don't care who they hire. Like you want the guy to be, you want the best person.
I think the bar is so low right now, anybody would be an upgrade.
Like, see, this is the most important time in Bengals history right now with the Joe Burrow.
I mean, obviously, I don't want
in a 4-year window of Joe Burrow.
Right.
They gotta make the right guy. They can't be messing around. So it's got to be the right guy. But I just have a hard time struggling knowing the personalities of the guys that I like. Like even like a Joe Brady. Like I just don't see.
I wouldn't do Joe Brady. I mean,
but I'm just saying, like any hot name, like a hot name. Anybody that anybody's thinking, like somebody said Ed Orgeron early in the thing or whatever. Anybody that you think about, they're going to want to implement their culture and their way, and that means relinquishing some parts of like operating daily operational items at Paul Brown Stadium, and that's what Zach Taylor came in with ideas on. Hey, we could play cool music and we could like ideas, right? But he's not demanding. The guys that we know, like we need someone like and I hadn't felt like this in a while because I was just like, well, Joe Burrow is just gonna come in and ultimately it might not give me a Super Bowl, but he's just going to go above and beyond and force the hand of the front office. But I never factored in Joe Burrow could tear his ACL and be in a position where now some of that leverage it seems silly, but mentally some of that leverage, like now he's not as indestructible. Right. So now some of the stuff that I'm thinking, like in this offseason coming up, like in my mind, I have it all played out, these conversations. They're asking Joe Burrow, what do you want when they go to the draft, right? They're going to be asking him like, where Joe Burrow's like the LeBron James of our team, like he's making some little decisions behind the scenes. He's not overstepping his boundaries, but I wanted him to. I always said that last year and the year before that. I said we need a quarterback that's going to Aaron Rodgers the situation. Aaron Rodgers will get whatever the hell he wants, and that was my way of beating the front office. This guy's torn his ACL, doesn't really have the leverage to come in and say what the hell he wants. As great as he played, he can still say that, but he's lost a little bit of that. And as we've seen in the year one of the Joe Burrow project or whatever, he can't do everything. And that's the scary part to me, is that I don't trust the front office to go hire the best person, because unlike what you're saying is, no, I need a coach that's going to go above and beyond and be crazy. People don't like Harbaugh because he's a lot like, I feel like I relate a little bit to Harbaugh. Sometimes I have a message to somebody, they think I'm so intense, they think I'm so crazy that they don't understand me, and they probably say, I hate this guy or he's weird, right? And it's got to be a unique force like that that doesn't care about the front office, like that just says, y'all go do that front office stuff. I'm going to be the crazy coach and do everything I can here. And I just don't. I find myself like thinking like, who would sign up for, after they're saying what they're doing like right now, whatever? Who would sign up for this? Like none of this is organized. Like
I think what they really need is someone like a Bill Parcells. I think they actually need somebody that is gonna be the de facto GM as well as a coach. I think that's perfect for what they need. For me, if it were me, I would have to move on from Duke Tobin, because if you're worried about Duke Tobin and the head coach button heads, why not just get a head coach that can be your de facto GM? Now, it could go bad because you've seen the Bill O'Brien stuff, but it also could go like Bill Belichick, or it could go like Bill Parcells. They need Bill Parcells. Bill Parcells is just too old for this team right now, but that's what they need.
I said that. I was saying that like what I said that a couple weeks ago. You're like, you need a guy that's just won everywhere.
Got another super chat here from Anthony Taylor. He asks, hold on here. I just got it. He says, how about Lincoln Riley? Since the season is done, can you guys give out your 2021 7th-round draft needs? I'm going to say about Lincoln Riley, I think it's similar to like a Zach Taylor kind of thing. I wouldn't mind taking him because I think that he's shown that he can work with several different quarterbacks. I wouldn't mind taking that chance. Because you see what's happening with Cliff Kingsbury. I think that it would be great for Joe Burrow.
Like a Zach Taylor type of thing. What do you mean by that?
Like a young guy, but Lincoln Riley has actually been a head coach before, so I can't say that.
Big difference. Lincoln
Riley, I wouldn't be opposed to. And for me, I would say draft needs are offensive tackle, offensive guard, tight end, corner, defensive line, interior. Like the edge rusher.
What could they? Somebody asked me that. What could they not draft, bro?
I don't know.
There's not a position
they need to draft a kicker.
You didn't even say wide receiver.
I don't think they need a wide receiver. Like I think it would be crazy. Nah, I don't think they need a wide receiver.
So you watching that game today?
Tight end. You watching Drew Sample and saying I like Drew Sample and Mason Shrek compared to our wide receivers. At least I have Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins. I have literally none of that at the offensive guard position, at the offensive tackle position, at the defensive tackle position. I'm watching Xavier Williams and Chris Covington at maybe at corner, maybe if William Jackson doesn't leave. If William Jackson leaves and Mackenzie Alexander leaves, I literally have nothing. So to me, wide receiver isn't that high for me compared to the other positions. If we're talking about it,
I don't know if I would rank it that high, but the same is so crazy to me. John Ross was drafted in 2000.
I would take a kicker before a receiver.
John Ross was right.
I would take a kicker before a receiver because that's another lingering issue
you know what's so crazy? The guy that they should have got, Tyler Bass, that we kept on saying is having a pretty good year. Like I think he was drafted in the 5th round by the Bills or something. I watch him in my fantasy every week. But this is the point. When John Ross was drafted, when the front office felt like there was a point where you need somebody to stretch the field, right? And what was that, 5 years ago now, right? Do you know that 5 years later, after drafting I can't even remember half these dudes now. What's the dude? He went to the Jets now. They draft all these 4th round wide receivers, everything like that. Do you know 5 years later or 6 years after Marvin Jones has left, we are in the same exact position. So every single time that I watch Tyler Boyd or T. Higgins run a route, they are blanketed because they have nobody to stretch the field.
But they still have almost 1,000 receiving yards each. What else do you want? I don't care if a guy can run a 4.2 if you only giving me 300 yards.
I don't care. That's not even a point. Just from the functionality of an offense and spacing and the good teams that I'm watching, like even
who does that for Miami? We can't even say. They don't have one.
Devontae Parker.
But he's a tall guy. He's not really a speed.
Grant is their speed guy to take the top off.
Right. But
everybody has one. We don't have one.
But who can say that they have 2,000-yard receivers, though?
But you're talking about an offense that's not even proficient. The good offenses in the NFL, like, can you win with Tyler Boyd? And I said, I don't know how high it is on the list. But
Tyler Boyd is the only reason we scored a touchdown today. Like, if Tyler Boyd doesn't score that touchdown, we literally have 0.
You're missing what I'm saying. I don't know.
I get what you're saying.
I get how you rank it or whatever. Right. I don't care about how you rank it. But
but like the Ravens would love, like the Ravens have that. They have Hollywood Brown, right? But you know that the Ravens would give like their kidney.
But they're missing a possession receiver. They're missing a trio. So that's what I'm saying. If every year we just go into the draft and we say, aha, that's the position we need. We did that with linebacker. We did that with center the year before that. Every year we say, aha, we need. If you constantly just don't take the best person available or miss out on somebody over and over again, you miss out on a DK Metcalf or all these guys that just get passed up, right? And I'm just going to just stay with the wide receiver position. To act like that's not a deficiency in our offense is a big problem. It's just as deficient as not having an edge. Now, how important they are to winning actual games, that's a mathematical equation that I can't equate for you. But to say that you're good, oh, no, I'm good on wide receivers, like that
I got 2,000-yard wide receivers. I don't need like it's like if we had
the functionality of the offense, though, like the good offenses that I just watched the Rams play today, or when I watch the Chiefs play, or even when you watch the Steelers play or whatever, you got your possession, you got your big body, and you got your field stretcher. And all of the good offenses to win a Super Bowl, at some point you have to do it. So to just skip over certain positions, I can't say that. To say that we could skip over it if a tackle was right there, hell yeah, I'm going tackle. But to act like that's not a deficiency as well, Just like linebacker was a deficiency.
Like having two edge rushers that finished with 10 sacks this season and saying I need another edge rusher that does something different. Like I can't say that if you got 2,000-yard receivers though.
You don't have that. That wasn't a good example because you don't have two edge rushers.
You say you don't have two edge rushers?
That wasn't a good example because you don't have two edge rushers.
No, I'm saying that would be like if you had edge rushers, just like we had with like Dunlap and Lawson, and you're like, I need another edge rusher. Like, nah,
the good teams have 3 or 4. The good teams have 3 or 4.
Name a team that has 2,000
Steelers.
2 1,000-yard receivers, where it's an abundance in the league. Because a lot of teams that are making the playoffs right now don't have that.
Rams.
The Rams,
Cup and Robert Woods.
Cup and Robert Woods. That's what I'm saying. It's not like I'm not saying that they don't need one. I don't think that you even have
to me. That's a void in the team. To say that to act like these holes are filled, that would be a mistake. The same way of saying, "Oh yeah, we good at I don't know left guard because we got Spain." When we go to the draft, the team is so bad right now at this point. To skip over a position would be egregious.
I don't think the team is that bad. I think the line is that bad that you can't get the balls to the receivers.
That team looks very bad today, bro. Like they don't look like they could even score any. They like without a average quarterback. Like Brandon Allen is okay on a good team, but on our team he looks terrible because the team doesn't play cohesively at any point or any facet of a game. To the point that if Tyler Boyd doesn't go house 72 yards, they don't even score 3 points. So for you to say like the team is not that bad, they don't play well together.
I'll talk about the elephant in the room. Why are you getting Joe Burrow a burner when his deep ball isn't A1 like that? Like, what does a burner do for this defense if Joe Burrow's strength isn't even the deep ball? That's like saying Tom Brady should get Tyreek Hill. That's not what he does. If we had someone like Carson Wentz that's slinging it like that, then yeah, you need to get him a bomber or Pat Mahomes. That's the reason it works. Joe Burrow is not a bomber like that, though. He doesn't throw the deep ball like that. So, like, how does us inserting in a speedy receiver that doesn't align with what his strength is, which is the short to intermediate, help him?
Because it's about the placement and how you fill in a football team. If the conversation is, do we get a wide receiver in the first round and you neglect getting a tackle or something like that, that's what a conversation where you have a legit force. But if you're sitting right there, 3rd round, 4th round, shit, I'd be looking at wide receiver 2nd round, honestly, because I feel like that is a void. But listen, when you say your complete thoughts, like, cool. So what I'm saying is that to act as though something is better than something else on this team is not cool to me, because there's no room on this team that can just be skipped. Like, if you're watching this team, they have talent all over the place, but cohesively they don't play well together. And is that a function of coaching? Maybe so. But if I got a room full of Justin Jeffersons and Tyler Boyds and all these other good wide receiver things, and I match that up with now filling in my offensive line and stuff like that, I think that might equate to more wins. But to get to a really, really good team and then say we're 8-8 and then go back to where we were 5-6 years ago and still be saying the same thing, like, hey, man, we now need somebody that can stretch the field a little bit. Because even if you feel like that's not Joe Burrow's game, don't forget Justin Jefferson gets that shit aired out every single week, who Joe Burrow threw to all the time. Joe Burrow's deep ball was the most efficient in college football in all of the land last year.
He had a line because he actually had an offensive line that can block.
That wasn't even a part of his game, but that is a big part of his game if you give him the pieces to the puzzle. But to say that I'm skipping tackle to draft the wide receiver, I agree. I would go tackle.
So in the 2nd round, you would skip an edge rusher to draft another wide receiver, or you would skip
a guard? It depends on the talent grade. It depends on the talent grade. That's how we ended with T.
I would rather have a tight end.
You know what you're describing? What you're describing is how we got T. Higgins. We needed a linebacker, right? But we skipped right over it because the talent level of T. Higgins was just too high. So if I was
over a tackle too, but now it's like
that's a scenario.
Joe Burrow is hurt.
But that's a scenario how you could end up with like a wide receiver, because if I go to the draft and another T. Higgins is sitting right there, and then my edge rusher grade for the guy is not that good, and I got a 3rd, 4th round grade on him, then
Right.
yeah, I could pull the trigger on another.
But that's also a part of why they're in the situation that they're in. They did that with John Ross. They did that with T. Higgins. The line is still garbage. So, like, are you going to do the same thing again?
It's bigger than that, though. They failed. They failed with the wrong offensive line coaching. They failed to address it in free agency. To just narrow it down to the draft, that's not no.
To me, it was the draft.
Like I like their draft. I like their draft. If in hindsight, yeah, you will go back and probably make some things a little bit different. But I stand
they
by
should have taken more than one lineman in that draft. Everybody felt like they should have taken more than one lineman out of that draft. And when they addressed it, it wasn't until like the 6th round. Like, nah, they should have definitely addressed the line at least more. I agree. Like, they could have did something in free agency. We saw that they did do it in free agency, but when they went into the draft and waited until like the 6th round to draft the offensive lineman, that was the only thing that I didn't like about their draft. I like the players. I like the class. I wouldn't say to trade any of them from that, but I felt like they should have at least taken one or two, like 2 linemen at minimum in that draft, period.
I think what happened is when they got to the draft, the grades that they had on the guys like the Austin Jacksons of the world and stuff weren't as high as what they had on T. Higgins. So if it's draft best player available, then you draft the best player available. Right. And that's just how it goes. And where they failed to go address it in free agency or the missteps that they made, I don't even really care. But I just know that like the draft wasn't a bad draft, and the players like even Akeem Davis-Gaither made a really good play earlier today. Like I feel like the draft was pretty strong.
I thought it was a good draft class for sure.
But yeah, at the end of the draft, yes, we all sat there and said that we definitely needed more. We needed more offensive linemen. But every single year, are we just going to just say we need more of this or we need more of this? To me, it's just like we got to get the most talented players in the building. And, you know, drafting out of position, drafting for a need is how we ended up with Billy Price. You know,
but it's because
there's a fine line. You know what I'm saying? Like,
you're right. You're right on that. But you got to remember, they wanted Frank Ragnow, and like,
but they didn't get him, and then they reached.
That's what they have to do. Like, if you have your guy, don't be afraid to go up and get your guy. Don't be afraid to trade up and go and get Frank Ragnow. They don't do that, and they like to wait and hope. And Carson Palmer said this. They like to hope that the guy that they have as number one is going to fall to them. The NFL doesn't work like that. If somebody sees their guy, they're going to trade up and get him. And if Frank Ragnow is here instead of Billy Price, the line is probably better. It's not going to be a miracle line, but it's better than not having Billy Price. But you're right. If you just draft for need instead of taking the best player available, then you end up with a Cedric Ogbuehi or you end up with a Jake Fisher instead of going out and getting La'el Collins like you should have when he was there.
So that's a better way to answer. Like, that's how you could end up with. Right. I don't see. There's no scenario I can see them drafting a wide receiver first round. But that's how it could happen. Like,
and I agree they do need somebody to open up. But like for me, it's like they need that tight end.
They need everything. There's no position. They need every position. Like if a Bobby Wagner level linebacker was sitting right there on the board, second round again, as many linebackers as we have on this club right now, I know Bynes could roll, Pratt could roll out too, right? Mm-hmm. We don't know about Akeem Davis-Gaither, and then Logan Wilson is the most promising one in the thing. You could honestly go back and go draft another linebacker. Like, I could do that for every single position. Cornerback, I could do that too. Like, for safety, like the Von Bell, the boom versus bust, like he makes a good play, makes a bad play. Like if you got a Jesse Bates level safety sitting right there in your face, a Grant Delpit of the world, like one of those guys sitting right there, how do you not take him? Like when you know that the talent level all across the board is just not at the level that you need to be championship contending.
I agree with you. I think it just depends on what your position of need is. Like if it is something like a safety or something like that, I get it. But if it's like your position of need is a premium position, like a corner or a tackle or a guard or something like that, then that's something that you got to do. Linebacker, you can pass on the best linebacker to get the best player available, right? But I think when it's like a left tackle, the left tackles that you're going to get in round 1, let's say even round 2, are vastly different than the left tackles that you're going to get in round 4 if you take another player instead of that.
Sure.
So I think that's the only part where you get into trouble with that. But we went a little over than we were expecting to. But thank you guys for tuning in for the Orange is the New Black podcast. Obviously, this isn't over. We got a full offseason. I think Zimmer said this is the most important offseason that the Bengals will have in a long time. I definitely agree with him on that. Thank you guys for tuning in. We're going to get through this. We're going to talk through all the different scenarios that we could do. What wide receiver would be the best to add to this offense? What lineman we should get? What coaching staff should we do? We're going to discuss it all. So thank you guys for tuning in. This is the Orange is the New Black podcast. Zim, before we get out of here, was there anything that you wanted to say?
Pray for Jonah's knee.
Pray for Jonah's knee. Definitely prayers up for Jonah Williams. Hopefully he has a successful surgery and a great return. And man, it's a nightmare right now. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, it's a nightmare right now.
That's a nightmare right now. I never thought I'd wake up to this. I never thought I'd wake up to Joe Burrow's knee. Like, you talk about the draft, like just going in, you wouldn't be in a position to draft in the best player available. You'd be going in the first 2 rounds and saying, I need a tackle, I need a guard, like no questions about it. You had to move up, do whatever you got to do. I'm just saying, even in a scenario, you don't get Penny. Like,
that's a disaster. That is a disaster.
I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna give you 2 guys. I forget the guy's name for Notre Dame, but he hasn't given up a sack in 2 years. He's really, really good. I watched some highlights from him over the weekend, and then the guy for Alabama too. Check those 2 guys. They're both going. There's 4 tackles that's going to go in like the top 20 this year.
Well, we better just take one of them. That's all.
But Penny has they're saying, at 20 years old, yeah, like this dude, like, yeah. But there's some guys right now. I tell you right now, there's 4 guys that could go in the first round. They're saying maybe 6, but 4. And out of those 6, 4 of them would start for us right now. So but Penny is a generational talent. They feel like I don't know enough about him. I haven't seen a live game from him yet because
I would take Penny. If he's not there, you take the next best one, even if that's moving back, stocking some picks up, and doing it. Do what you got to do.
I think at this point, watching the Dolphins and just looking at how many holes are on this team.
Their line look bad too.
And how many guys are coming back from injured reserve on this team, it makes me want to stockpile like a lot of picks because it's too many question marks. The only guarantee is a guy that's coming off a damn ACL. Joe Burrow. That's your only guarantee. There's nothing else guaranteed on this team.
And I think from what we heard, I think someone was saying that they talked to an actual surgeon. It doesn't sound like Joe Burrow is going to be ready for 2021, the start of the season. So you staring that down the face of the possibility as well too. So it's going to be a big offseason for the Bengals. I would not rush Joe back. I would want to keep him as healthy as possible. But yeah, we'll talk about that on the next episode. Someone asked, when is the next episode going to be? Wednesday night around 8 o'clock should be when that is. Please be sure that you turn on your notifications for Zim's YouTube channel, the Zim Who Day one. Turn it on for my one at New Stripe City. That way you always know when we go live. You'll get the notifications. You'll be able to see them. Also, follow us on Twitter at New Stripe City for me, at Zim Who Day for Zim. Also, be sure to follow Zim on Instagram at Zim_Who Day for his live streams of the game. You can follow me at New Stripe City. This is the Orange is the New Black podcast. We're going to get through it, and we're going to leave you guys with a Who Day.
Happy belated birthday.
Appreciate it, bro.
Hello, world. What separated your deep ball from everybody else?
My deep ball, it has a little secret sauce to it, man.
Never get too high, never get too low, but just keep moving.
The whole story is Carlos never beat me in any kind of sports, and